All right, welcome to the show. It is Tuesday, and we're wrapping up our drafts. Ben Gretsch, Dave Richard, you got any drafts remaining?
Oh, yeah. I have at least 3 that I know about, and I have to tell a heartbreaking story to begin.
And then I'll tell a funny story to make everything better.
I was invited to a draft that I had to turn down. It's a draft that I've wanted to be in for a long time. And the timing just didn't work out. And so I'm going to be in one less league than I maybe should have been in. I turned down the Waterbury Open, hosted by none other than Twitter's version of Shooter McGavin.
I don't know what that means. And
you don't know who Shooter McGavin is?
I know who Shooter McGavin is. Schrager doesn't, but Twitter's version of Shooter McGavin, what does that mean?
Well, it's not the real Shooter McGavin. Shooter McGavin was a fictional character played by Chris McDonald in the movie Happy Gilmore. But this is somebody who took on the persona on Twitter. And honestly, it's maybe the only Twitter handle that's changed my life. And now I can't even participate in his special fantasy league that he invited me to.
Shooter, yeah. Now, all right, well, I'm sorry to hear that, Dave.
I told him that usually by 10:30 I'm finishing up my warm glass of milk and going to bed. But because I'm unable to participate in his draft, I'm going to have a warm glass of shut the hell up.
Yeah, all right. Well, now
happy the gold jacket's yours. Shooter's going to choke.
I love that's such a weird one-off line in that movie.
Yeah.
So
it's like Adam Sandler wanted to give his buddy a line in the movie, and that was the line that they put in.
yeah. So weird. So funny story. I think this is a funny story. We have an office league, and I guess Jamie picked up Darrell Williams a few days ago, but that was before the commissioner of the league had set up waivers. So someone else in the league sent an email and said, hey, shouldn't Jamie have to give back Darrell Williams and have him go back on waivers because Jamie picked him up before waivers were set up? And I just knew that if I didn't reply, I really don't think anybody would have replied. The email would have just sat there. So I wrote back. I was like, yeah, I think that's a good point if that's what happened. Something like that. So JB, we just got off the phone. JB's like, why'd you respond to that email? Well, because nobody was going to say anything. I didn't want to just sit there. And Jamie's like explaining to me like probably what happened and what the mistake was. And I was like, yeah, I didn't want it to go unnoticed. And Jamie goes, but you're not even in the league. Like, I'm not. I think Jamie made me a co-manager so I could see the league for content or something like that. And here I am responding to your here I am playing fantasy cop in a league that I'm not even in. So I felt really
I mean, it's not surprising after you called your local government officials after a golf course was open.
I love the way Dave said he has 3 more that he knows of. I don't know. I know I have 2 more, but that's all I know of.
Well, I got Twitch tonight, sharing a team on Twitch. So the Twitch draft is tonight, and Twitch 7 p.m. Eastern time, Tuesday, Thursday, and then 11:30 a.m. on Sundays, answering all of your questions. All right, let's get to it. First topic I want to address came from a couple of emails, and it's about handcuff strategy. And I know we've talked about this, but let's do it again because I'm getting enough questions about it. So Nick from Chicago says, should I trade Boston Scott to the Miles Sanders manager for Chase Edmonds because I have Kenyon Drake? So do you just swap handcuffs there? And then Steve from a Michigan town known for chicken and Christmas. Dave?
Detroit.
Oh, okay.
That's a big town.
I have James.
I'm pretty sure they have chicken and celebrate Christmas in Detroit.
They do. It's a good point. I have James Conner and I have A.J. Dillon. Should I drop Dillon for Benny Snell? So we're getting these types of handcuffs questions. So let's start with that first idea of I have Chase Edmonds and I drafted Boston Scott. Should I make a trade to the Miles Sanders manager, give up Edmonds? Oh, no, I got it backwards. I have Boston Scott and I have Kenyon Drake. Should I give up Scott to get Chase Edmonds and everybody gets their handcuff? Dave, where would you stand on that? Is that something you would do?
It's something I would do. It's not something that I would actively seek out. There's probably a reason why you drafted Boston Scott in your draft, and you probably wanted to have him. And he probably carries a little more standalone value at this point than Chase Edmonds does. I might wait a week before following through on that trade. Because what if Sanders re-injures his hamstring again week 1? What if he is limited in week 1 and Boston Scott ends up playing great? I would wait a week. I would tell the other fantasy manager, you know what? It's not a bad idea in principle. Let's give it a week and see what happens. And of course, you're running the risk that Kenyon Drake, gets hurt and misses time, and then you don't get Chase Edmonds at all. But I think you wait. I don't think you jump into it right now.
And Ben, you like to have your hands in as many pies as you can, right? So you'd rather have.
I do too.
Yeah, and for me, it's kind of similar to what Dave said. It's a player value, and Scott for me is a full tier ahead of Edmonds. I understand, they're similar in a lot of ways, but I'm really high on Scott, and so I wouldn't make that particular trade. But it's funny, we did the FFT draft at the end of last week or no? I guess it was Monday morning, early Monday morning, and Dave called me out because I ended up grabbing Pollard, and I had taken Ezekiel Elliott 4th overall. And that was because Pollard was my top running back for over a round. And so, I ended up handcuffing, but it's mostly just because Pollard was the clear pick for me at that point. And I don't even necessarily love it, but he was a clear best option for me. So to me, it's just like, where do you rank the backups? I'm not necessarily going to completely avoid it, but I would much prefer Scott. And so I'm going to keep Scott.
Right. So if we go to our second email from Steve from, I don't think it's Detroit. I think it's Santa Wing. It's known for chicken and Christmas. It's probably Detroit.
It's one or the other.
Yeah, I've never been to Santa Wing. And he says, "Dear Sam, Cliff, Norman, Coach, do either of the Bens know that?" Oh, Dave.
Sorry.
Cheers. Yeah, I knew that.
Okay. The other Ben Traeger did not know that.
No.
Ben, you didn't know that?
No.
Classic show.
Do you even know who Ted Danson is?
Ted Danson, the guy dances in a GIF,
no, Ted Danson.
What do you think he would know Ted Danson from? Three Men and a Little Lady?
Well, I mean, that is a classic.
No, he's been in a lot of stuff. You definitely know Ted Danson.
Might be the best comedic actor in television history.
Yeah, and there's that song about him, Hold Me Closer, Ted Danson.
CSI.
That's Tony Danza.
Oh, Tony Danza, that's what it is. Yeah.
Man. All right, but this question is a little bit different.
I'm starting to think that Traeger was literally born 8 months ago.
Oh, I know him from CSI.
He wasn't on CSI.
Yeah, he starred in it.
Ted Danson was on CSI?
Yeah, maybe in my time, the past 10 years
Adam,
of CSI.
is this true? Am I missing up? I'm Googling.
He's definitely on The Good Place, which is one of the best comedies made in the last 5 years.
Ted Danson, CSI.
All right, so anyway.
Yeah, I guess he was on CSI. I'm way off. I thought Ted Danson was only legally allowed to be on NBC sitcoms.
Okay. So A.J. Dillon, this guy. So Steve wants to know if he should drop A.J. Dillon for Benny Snell since he has James Conner. And we just got a report. I mean, we got a report that made this probably an easier call, but the Athletic saying that don't expect A.J. Dillon, quote, don't expect A.J. Dillon to unseat Jamal Williams anytime soon. Yes, people have been mesmerized by Dillon's stature, especially his tree trunk quads, but Williams can catch the football. Dillon hasn't shown yet that he can in a game. Running backs coach Ben Sermon said that's the biggest difference between the two. So I do think you could do this. Would you drop A.J. Dillon for your handcuff? It doesn't have to be Benny Snell or whatever, but in general, yeah.
Yes. I think I'm close on this one too. There's two things that I have to take a handcuff or to pick one up. One, they have to be cheap, and in the case of Tony Pollard, I just made that example. He was a lot later of a pick than I expected him to be. And then the second is they have to be the clear backup. There can be no ambiguity because if your high picked running back gets hurt early in the year, you're already in a bad spot. If they get hurt late in the year, if there's any ambiguity, he might not be the handcuff anymore. The guy you thought he was in August might not be anymore. So I don't know where there's really value that gets brought in. The early injury, I guess there's some value, but it's you're already kind of in a bad spot. Benny Snell seems to clearly be the number 2. They really, really like him, and similar to Pollard. It doesn't seem like there are a ton of those situations this year, though.
Okay. All right, so then that brings us to this question, right? Who's more valuable? Some of these guys are kind of handcuffs, but they're in the Boston Scott, Chase Edmonds, that group, where they might have some standalone value. Or these other running backs who are owned in fewer leagues. I just find these ownerships interesting. So if you're sitting there and you're wondering if you should hang on to a backup running back, you're probably not going to start, or take a chance on a guy like Josh Kelley. Who's more valuable? Okay. So the 5 running backs I highlighted here that are all in 64%, rostered in 64% or more of leagues. Latavius Murray, Alexander Mattison, Tony Pollard, Boston Scott, and Chase Edmonds. Okay, Latavius is 89% rostered. The others are in the 65 range. Mattison, Pollard, Scott, and Edmonds. Would you keep them or would you drop them for any of these players who are managed or are rostered in less than 50% of leagues? Darrell Henderson, Damian Harris, Chris Thompson, Darrell Williams, Josh Kelley, Justin Jackson, Devine Ozigbo, and James Robinson. I'll give that list again. Darrell Henderson, Damian Harris, any of the Jacksonville running backs, Darrell Williams, Josh Kelley, and Justin Jackson.
Let's take Ozigbo, Harris, and Jackson off the list because I'm not keeping them. In the case of Harris, I'll keep him if I have an IR spot. But otherwise, I'd rather spend that roster spot on another running back who could have some breakout potential early on in the season. And that list, the running backs with early season breakout potential would include Kelley. It would include Darrell Williams. It would include pretty much everybody else that you named. James Robinson is absolutely on that list. Darrell Henderson might not play in week 1. He might not play in week 1. He's like a better version of Damian Harris because I almost figure if you're stashing him, you're doing it for the first month because you want to see what you get out of him. And it goes without saying that almost anybody that you named is going to get cut if there is a really good player that comes up off the waiver wire that we've all completely missed and you lost in week 1 so that you can pick him up easily.
Yeah.
I pretty much agree with those identifications. This is interesting because Murray, Madison, Pollard, and Edmonds for me are all really close. I mentioned Scott. I have a tier higher, but I have Kelley in that tier above with Scott. So he's one that I think I would prefer to all of these guys other than Scott. And then I have
the Alvin Kamara owner. Would you drop Latavius Murray for Josh Kelley?
No,
I would not.
No, I think Pollard, Madison, Murray, and Scott in full PPR and maybe half PPR and maybe non-PPR. Okay, fine. Those 4 for sure you got to hold on to, especially if you've got the starter in front of them.
I think I would take Kelley over Murray in that scenario. And I know it's a little bit risky and goes against what you guys both just said, but yeah, I think I would. And then I was also going to know that Darrell Williams and Robinson for me are both in that group, the tier with Madison and Pollard and those guys. So if you prefer one of them, I don't have a huge issue with it.
Yeah, I would say that with all of those running backs I mentioned being rostered in less than 50% of leagues, Henderson, Harris, well, let's forget about Harris, Ozigbo, and Justin Jackson, right? Henderson, Thompson, Darrell Williams, Josh Kelley, James Robinson, they're owned in 20 to 49% of leagues. Hopefully you can make room for them. Okay, hopefully there's maybe like a crappy wide receiver that you have or something. We're going to talk about some players who are owned in or who rostered in too many leagues. But I don't know. I see, Dave, 5 running backs. What is it? It's Henderson, Thompson, Williams, Kelley, Robinson. 5 running backs in less than 50% of league, rostered in less than 50% of leagues that
should be.
Yeah, I'm not saying they should be 100% rostered.
No.
But
they
should an opportunity right now.
Absolutely. Well, I don't know about Henderson getting that opportunity, which is why.
No, I mean for fantasy managers is an opportunity to get a running back.
But still, I think I'd rather roster Robinson, for example, who's the running back that no one really knows about. We could introduce everybody to him if you wanted to, but no one really knows who he is, and no one might want to know who he is because he might be a starter for Jacksonville, but he's part of a committee in Jacksonville where they're going to play from behind, in Jacksonville where their offensive line makes Washington feel better about their offensive line. And he's not a great pass catcher, certainly not compared to Chris Thompson, but I would still rather have him just in case he ends up being the reason why the Jaguars give the Colts a run for their money in week 1. And all of a sudden he turns into a potential breakout who by week 4, week 5, we end up starting.
Okay. All right. We got a lot more coming up, including some FAB tips, how to get to the season if you're managing your FAB, the most over-rostered players, the fantasy cops. And I want to ask you guys, who's moved the most in the rankings since training camps opened? There's one player in particular that I really want to focus on here that I'm starting to think I may have overreacted a little bit, but I'll get your thoughts on it. But, it's been a while since I have worked on a resume, thankfully, knock on wood, or written a cover letter, something like that. But I do send important emails at work, not the ones that I send to, Dave, Ben, etc. But when I need to sound better, communicate more effectively, more clearly, I use Grammarly. I just started using it. Grammarly.com/FFT is where you want to go. GRAMMARLY.com/FFT. You can get 20% off Grammarly Premium. So like Dave, when you write your columns, just upload the document right into Grammarly. What it's going to do is going to look at your writing. It's going to suggest different vocabulary. It's going to make some grammatical changes, unless you're just so good you don't need any grammatical changes. But it's just going to maybe eliminate some sentences, make it less verbose. This is a really cool feature for anyone who's writing, who has a speech coming up, anything like that. Grammarly.com/FFT. Give it a shot. You're going to be writing more confidently and more effectively. So yeah, you can either upload something or you can type directly onto Grammarly.com. And it's just going to scan your document and find some things that can be better. And it's going to talk about your clarity, your engagement, your delivery. So like I said, I've used it for work emails. If I were a writer for the website, if I had to write some columns, that would be bad news for all of you. But if I did, I absolutely would use Grammarly. It would make my columns a lot better and a lot more effective. Sometimes you don't even realize how repetitive you're being when you're writing something. So, that's been the case sometimes where I've written an email, put it in Grammarly, and says, you can eliminate this. Just makes it a lot better. So anyway, what you want to do if you want to elevate your writing and communicate more effectively, you want to use it on Outlook, Gmail, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever. Go to Grammarly.com/FFT. Sign up right now for Grammarly Premium. Get 20% off. 20% off Grammarly Premium at Grammarly.com/FFT. GRAMMARLY.com/FFT. I got contract news here. The Saints close to an extension with Alvin Kamara. The Cardinals signed DeAndre Hopkins to an extension. And the Browns signed Kareem Hunt to a 2-year, $13.25 million deal. Ben, what did you think of this Kareem Hunt signing?
I thought it was interesting. I mean, obviously there was some talk in the dynasty community that, Hunt could potentially be a 3-down back next year somewhere else. And Chubb could also be a 3-down back. But now we're looking at, a multi-year situation where they're probably going to be splitting. I don't think it changes anything for 2020 and what our expectations were. And as far as dynasty is concerned, I'm not really sure. I think it's a little bit of a knock on Chubb. Certainly, obviously, to have Hunt back. I don't think it really impacts Hunt too much because I don't think there was ever really a reason to believe that he was a lock to get a 3-down role somewhere else in a great situation. And this is not a bad situation. He's being used pretty heavily. There's a reason he's being drafted in the 4th, 5th round in some redraft leagues. He's being used as standalone value, and then he also has plenty of upside if something happens to Chubb over the next couple of years at some point. He could have a league-winning season. So, I think fine for Hunt and his dynasty value, and then a little bit of a knock for Chubb, certainly long term.
All right, Dave. Justin Jackson expected to play week 1. Darrell Henderson trending in the right direction. The Rams apparently are going to use 3 running backs if Henderson plays in week 1. What's
They're copying the Niners?
Yeah, maybe. I really feel like the Niners were more of a 2-back team than people.
Yeah, well, that was when they didn't have Jerick McKinnon.
That is true.
His contract, speaking of contracts, they gave him a lot of money to not play the last 2 years. I'm sure, obviously, he got hurt, whatever. I think it could get messy. I think Malcolm Brown is going to be one of those disposable running backs where you'll have him on your team now, and by week 4, you'll say, why is this guy still on my team? He's not doing anything. He's not very good. Akers and Henderson, to me, are the key guys moving forward. They're more explosive. Brown is almost like the safety net who is going to get the ceremonial first carry and first start because he's been with the team for so long.
He is rostered in 17% of leagues, Malcolm Brown. So it doesn't sound like we have much interest there.
You'd have to be 3 a.m. at the bar desperate to start Malcolm Brown week 1.
Man, there have been plenty of nights where I have gone to the bar at 3 a.m. just desperate as hell, said, hey, open up the kitchen, give me a damn pizza or some chicken wings or something. That's what you meant, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think I meant?
I don't know. Patriots expected to ease Sony Michelle into the mix. So are we not starting him in week 1?
You shouldn't.
Yeah.
Please don't make me have to choose between Sony Michelle and Malcolm Brown week 1.
Okay, you don't have to.
Michelle, I expect to see a lot of White and Rex Burkhead in week 1.
Mm-hmm.
We know Harris is going to be out as well.
And Brandon Cooks was limited with a calf injury. Is he in jeopardy of missing Thursday's game?
I haven't looked into it yet, and we'll see if he practices or how much he practices on Tuesday and Wednesday. Ultimately, the injury report comes out, but Aaron Wilson, who covers the Texans, said that he's been fast throughout camp. He's been separating from defenders, and that leads me to believe that he'll be okay for the game. And I like him. If he's active, I like him. I like Fuller more, but I think both of them could end up getting minimum 8 targets against the Chiefs.
Imagine if Will Fuller was limited with the calf injury leading to week 1. Would Dave be saying that he liked him?
If he's limited and he's playing, I would say I liked him.
Yeah.
Fuller's going to get. I think Fuller's going to get 12 targets and go for about 150 yards in the opener.
I think 100 yards is at least the minimum, and he's going to be chalky in DFS.
Yeah,
which is why I think going to Cooks might be the better idea, because everyone in the world is going to be on Fuller. But Kansas City secondary right now has some issues. Charvarius Ward is their only reliable starter. Everybody else that they have is big, huge question mark at this point. Their other outside cornerback, Bashad Breeland, suspended to begin the year. So Houston can win there. It's Watson evading the Chiefs pass rush and uncorking a couple of deep balls where he can really give the Texans a chance to make some big plays. And he did it in 2 games last year, had 42 and 52 pass attempts in those games.
Yeah. It's a huge number there. By the way, those 2 teams, I'm looking forward to previewing this game tomorrow, but the Chiefs and the Texans gave up the most receiving yards to running backs last year. We'll see if that continues in this one. That'd be great for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, maybe for David Johnson, maybe for Duke Johnson. But, actually, if Watson's going to throw more than 40 times, I bet Duke Johnson is like a 5-catch guy or something like that. Wouldn't shock me.
But I'm not starting him.
No.
Maybe, 16-team PPR
right.
league, 3 running backs. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. He's on the bench.
I'd start him over Malcolm Brown in PPR.
There you go.
How about you? Would you do that? Okay. All right, 2 more notes here. Colts tight end Trey Burton is on IR with a neck injury. Jack Doyle gets the Jaguars in week 1, and 50% rostered for Jack Doyle. Dave, did he crack your top 15 in week 1?
At tight end, I will double check, but I believe he did.
Okay. All right.
I'm checking right now.
Well, while you do that,
I just hit TE on the pull down.
Okay.
He is exactly 15th.
Hey, how about that?
Ahead of Gronk, Gesicki, Chris Herndon, Austin Hooper. He's ahead of CJ Uzama.
No. Okay. That's Jack Doyle. And finally, the Giants waived Deandre Baker, who was their one of their 3 first-round picks a couple of years ago. 2019, I guess that was. And the only cornerback selected in round 1 that year, actually, and now waived. So the most over-rostered players on too many rosters, get rid of them. I came prepared with a list just in case you guys don't have any names off the top of your head. I can throw these at you. Or
Please do.
Okay. Is that what we want to do?
Yeah, because I don't have a list.
That's my fault. I should have sent that out earlier to give you time. But 99% rostered Leonard Fournette.
I just told someone to cut him the other day in a shadow league.
No way.
Somebody asked me, they needed to cut somebody to roster somebody, and I can't remember what. I answer a lot of these DMs, but they needed to add somebody that they needed to add. Maybe it was a kicker or something, and it was a shallow league. They didn't have a lot of options, and I said, looking at the roster, in my opinion, Fournette, I don't get it. I don't think Fournette is a bad person to have on your roster right now. I certainly think there's a lot of upside here, but there's also a chance that Leonard Fournette is just bad. And there's a lot of people that are acting like he's still just a top 5 pick, and the last 3 years didn't happen. But he wasn't. He was a compiler, running back, volume stats. People are like, look how many total yards he had last year. He wasn't good. He got a ton of touches. I just don't buy it. I don't get it.
How do you get points in fantasy football, Ben?
Lots of touches.
Okay. Well, I don't know if he's going to get a lot of touches in Tampa Bay, but I think the potential is there. And half the reason why I was in love with Ronald Jones from the start of training camp until a week ago, was because I thought he was going to get a lot of touches. And now that could fall on Fournette. It's not a guarantee, but I think he's absolutely worth rostering.
Yeah, but 99%, because I'm not.
Yeah, 99%. Okay. Absolutely. He belongs on a roster in every fantasy league.
Are you sure he's better than Ronald Jones? Like, I know it's blasphemy to suggest that Ronald Jones is good, but he was pretty decent last year.
If I am basing it off of last year, I would say yes, Fournette is a better fit for what Bruce Arians wants and is therefore the better running back for Tampa Bay. But I don't have an intimate idea of exactly how good Ronald Jones was in training camp. Okay, I know what he did to get ready for training camp, but if he was amazing in training camp, Ben, they wouldn't have given Leonard Fournette what they gave him.
Sure.
They just wouldn't. They would have stuck with McCoy and Ogunbowale and everybody else that they have.
I did just pull up PFF's player grades literally after asking that question, and Ronald Jones was graded better, was better in the running game, was slightly worse in the passing game than Fournette. Better pass blocker. Everyone says Jones is a terrible pass blocker. Fournette was even worse somehow.
By 2 spots, but they were both like after 100.
They're both bad.
They were both terrible.
But Jones overall had the better grade.
It was weird last year. I think I saw this on PFF where Fournette was top 10 in elusiveness after being in the 30s the previous 2 years. So there must have been a couple of plays where he just he broke a tackle or something, or he made a guy miss and he was just off to the races.
Yeah.
And it could have been that game against Denver. He had a big run like that against the Broncos.
Yeah.
And that could have pumped up his elusiveness, but physical. He's absolutely more prepared to handle a goal line role than Rojo.
Well, I don't know if you did, Dave, your pros with Joe's draft, but I just had mine. It's 14-team league PPR.
Mm-hmm.
You want to guess where Leonard Fournette went?
Round 6.
Give me a number overall.
If it's round 6 in a 14-team league, that means he's probably 81st.
Ben, where do you think Fournette went?
I don't even think I want to know. 45th.
You don't want to know. 47th he went.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that's so bad. I'm sorry. Guys, he could be Trent Richardson 2.0, and no one is acting like that's a possibility.
Yeah, I was nervous because the guy I'm sharing a team with, Matthew, had him in our queue in round 3. But we didn't take him, luckily. We took Patrick Mahomes instead. But no, we didn't pick again for a while, and Fournette was off the board in round 4. Okay, so anyway, what was I? All right, let's go back to our list here. Most over-rostered players. So I had Fournette at 99%. That was really the only running back that I thought was extremely over-rostered. Maybe. I think maybe he should be 85% or something like that. But anyway, Emmanuel Sanders, 83%.
Should be lower.
He will be completely unsexy, but still find a way to get you 4 for 65 every single week with the occasional touchdown. Every single week.
Week 1, though. Week 1, I think, is going to be interesting because the Bucs, I can see a lot of points in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Saints, Bucs. The Bucs, their secondary got a lot better last year, but it was actually they were doing pretty well against number 1 receivers, not necessarily the number 2 guys.
If he gets 4 catches every single week, never fluctuates, which would be good to be that consistent, he would have 64 catches. There has been, I'm pretty sure it's targets, right? The 75 stat. No one since Alvin Kamara was drafted 3 years ago, no one other than Alvin Kamara or Michael Thomas on the Saints has gotten more than 75 targets. So if he gets 64 catches, he's probably getting over 75 targets unless he catches every single target he gets. And so that would mean that he's going to be the best third receiving weapon in New Orleans in the last 4 seasons. And that's not even considering the fact that Jared Cook already established himself last year as a pretty solid third weapon. I don't see how Sanders can even get 4 catches a week.
Let me give you a fun take here, right? Emmanuel Sanders. See if you agree with this. So a lot of people really like Emmanuel Sanders, probably more than anyone on this show does. If you have Emmanuel Sanders and he has a good week 1, I would say he is the best trade.
Yep.
And I could see it.
Yeah, but who's going to give you anything for him?
I think a lot of people would, Dave. I think people are buying in. Chris Harris came on Friday, and was it Chris Harris, Stracker? Was he the one saying?
Yeah, Chris Harris was about it. Yep.
Yeah, a lot of people like Emmanuel Sanders. He said, hey, once upon a time, Brandon Cooks and Michael Thomas were both good. So I think there is some Emmanuel Sanders love out there. I think that was evident in his ADP. The fact that he's rostered in 83% of leagues. You trade him. He has a good week in week 1. That's a sell high.
Yeah, but what are you going to get?
I don't know.
Anything.
DeAndre Swift.
Okay, all right.
You know, get something. We'll talk about it after week 1. When
Emmanuel Sanders and a bench running back for DeAndre Swift who disappoints, or Devin Singletary. There's someone that'll have a bad game.
Yeah, that's a great
get
move.
Flustered and they'll go. That's fine. You can all, and I'm not trying to stand on a podium and say, make sure Emmanuel Sanders is on your roster. He's one of those other players who's cuttable for sure for the running backs that we talked about 10, 15 minutes ago.
Right.
Like if I'm going into the season, I know I'm not starting Emmanuel Sanders. If he's my 5th, 6th, or later wide receiver on my bench, when am I ever going to start him, even if he does get 4 catches per game? He's like a bye-week replacement. So you could certainly cut him for one of the running backs that might be out there on the waiver wire.
John Brown, 78% rostered. Sammy Watkins, 74% rostered. John Brown, 78%. Sammy Watkins.
You know what they have in common with Emmanuel Sanders?
They're wide receivers.
They've all been to the chicken and Christmas capital of Michigan. That's what they're
wide receivers.
They are familiar names.
And
if there's one thing that stands the test of time in fantasy football, it's that people gravitate toward names that they've seen before. It's why Adrian Peterson is probably on a bunch of rosters at this point. I mean, you'll tell me what his rostership percentage is.
But it's about 50.
Yeah, okay. But like people remember.
I'm going to guess it's much, much lower. I'm going to guess it's like 15.
Really, for Adrian Peterson? I'd be surprised by that.
What do you think? Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm just saying John Brown had 1,000 yards last year. Sammy Watkins had 1,000 yards once before in his career. Emmanuel Sanders was pretty good once upon a time. People will gravitate toward those names late in their draft.
Are they over rostered?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go get James Robinson. Drop those.
I kind of think Watkins might prove to be under rostered. It's been weird all year that he hasn't been higher, and I like Mecole Hardman, but
okay,
probably in that offense he should be rostered.
Yeah, but I could see Hardman taking work away from him.
Sure.
Sure.
Golden Tate, 62%. Hunter Renfrow, 56%.
Fine.
I'm fine with Tate, and Tate kind of belongs in that same group of names, but he could end up being like pretty good, especially in PPR, as the Giants pass to, save their lives every week.
My issue with Tate is like, do you have the guts to start him against Pittsburgh, Chicago, or San Francisco?
No, he's a bye week. For now, he's a bye week receiver, but he's one where the target volume should be better than any other receiver that we've talked about since this segment began.
Okay. Robbie Anderson is 43% rostered. D.D. Westbrook is 25% rostered. I mean, I know that's not a high percentage, but why?
Watch him catch a touchdown this week, and then everybody rushes to add D.D. Westbrook.
He's the same percentage as Shenault, same roster percentage as Shenault.
That's a problem.
Yeah. Robbie Anderson at 43%.
There was one beat that said that they were going to cut him because he was so banged up in camp. Westbrook. I mean, it was like an outside shot, and it made a little news because it was like, oh, there's a 53-man projection, and it didn't happen, obviously. But I don't see how at this point you can be optimistic about a guy in the last year of his contract who's never really been productive. He's 27 years old, and they have this rookie that they liked enough to take in the upper half of the second round who is exciting. Like, that's just not good for D.D. Westbrook.
Okay, what about Robbie Anderson at 43%?
I wouldn't mind having him on my bench for week 1 just to see how this Panthers offense operates and to see whether or not he's the 3rd most targeted player or the 4th most targeted player.
And if you're looking for wide receivers that you could replace these guys with, Paris Campbell, 17%. Cordell Patterson, 16% rostered.
But he's a running back, Adam.
Yeah, but he is also eligible wide receiver.
Wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah.
If Cordell Patterson ended up being a thing for the Bears and you could start him at receiver even though he's more running back?
That happened in the middle of the year a couple years ago. And then there was talk about switching his position mid-season. That was
Yeah, no, there were a lot of fantasy tops.
Yeah.
And CBS has him eligible at both.
James Washington, 11% rostered. I mean, there's just like no thought that the guy who led the Steelers in receiving last year could actually be the number 2 receiver on the team.
Yeah, it seems like a problem. I mean, that's kind of a mistake in my opinion. The issue is obviously Claypool, their second round pick, is more, similar to the point I just made about Westbrook, he overlaps with Washington's skill set more than Deontay Johnson's, and he's probably going to take some snaps from Washington, but that's too much certainty. He should be on more than this.
Okay, and as far as tight ends go, Rob Gronkowski. Also, I want to say Van Jefferson is 8% playing a deep league. There's been some Van Jefferson buzz. We've seen them use 3 receivers before. So
yep, I like that.
I couldn't really find tight ends who were over rostered. Maybe Gronkowski at 93%, Jared Cook at 90%. But Jared Cook, I think, is a week 1 starter, isn't he, Dave?
I agree. I think he is.
Yeah. So
yep. 40 and a touchdown.
Yeah, I'm not going to spend much time on tight ends. Well, I think when we preview the games, you just want some streamers. I think Cook scored in both games against the Bucks last year, if I recall.
He might have. I'm more looking at the linebackers and safeties and wondering, well, are they really going to dedicate one of their great linebackers to covering Jared Cook? I don't think they will. It'll probably be a safety. That's a matchup that I think Drew Brees will believe in.
Okay. Those would be your over-rostered players. Some things I want to promote real quick. We have a mailbag we record on Friday, but it airs on Saturday, so you have an opportunity throughout the week to get your questions in, but they're going to be starter sit questions. You're going to want more trade questions, not like waiver wire necessarily, because the episode airs Saturday. But if you want your question read, we do read emails, fantasyfootball@cbsi.com, but we also read Apple Podcast review questions. And we'd appreciate a 5-star review. Continue to help us grow. All the help that you've all given us has been so appreciated. So keep it going. Give us a 5-star review, and you'll get your question answered in our special Saturday episode, the mailbag. We have Fantasy Football Today in 5, our brand new podcast. Every morning it publishes at 3 a.m. So when you first wake up, if you want 5 minutes of fantasy news and analysis, Fantasy Football Today in 5. Sometimes it's like 5 minutes and 10 seconds, so budget a little bit extra time. But it's cool. It's doing really well right now. Got a pretty nice little audience. Let's keep it going. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, smart speakers, wherever you listen to podcasts. It's called Fantasy Football Today in 5. All right, FAB tips. I want to go over a few of the $20+ FAB bids from last year's 14-team podcast league. Okay,
go for it.
Terry McLaurin, $21.
Do you know what week?
You're in order. I think week 1, but like after week 1, but all I know is starting early in the season and moving on.
Okay.
Yeah,
McLaurin,
he was
21.
He was the biggest guy after week 1.
Demarcus Robinson, $26.
That might have been me.
Got a few
Robinson.
decent games there.
Yeah, I thought he'd be more involved and better in that offense.
This was the one that you got to learn your lesson from. Wayne Gallman, $84 out of 100, by the way, $100 budget. $84 for Wayne Gallman, who probably won you 1 week. Then he got hurt, unfortunately. But wow, $84.
I mean, at that time, it sounded like Barkley would miss a month plus, and so I understand the aggressiveness there. But as it played out, Barkley only missed a couple of weeks because he's superhuman, and Gallman got hurt himself.
Yeah.
Was it worth it? Do you think it's worth it to spend 84 to help clinch a win 1 week?
No, not one. But how?
I believe there was someone on this podcast who believed that that it was worth it.
The way that I think I make a lot of transactions in that league, right? A lot of $0 bids, but a lot of $1 bids too. A lot of $5 bids, those types of things. I cannot imagine going through that season with $16 other than the Wayne Gallman cash in, But let's take Latavius Murray. He gave you 2 weeks with over 30 PPR points. How much was that worth?
168, according to the Wayne Gallman chart.
I would say like 50. And
it was 2 weeks in the middle of the season. Like he might have helped you kind of keep your playoff hopes alive for a couple of weeks. It's got to be worth at least a third.
My first thought was it's dependent on your team's level at that point when he emerged. If you were on the playoff bubble, he was probably worth every dollar you had left at that point.
Daniel Jones was $21. Cortland Sutton was $26. That was like mid-season or just shy of mid-season. Gerald Everett, $26. That was bad. This was an interesting one. Kenny Stills. This is when Fuller got hurt. Kenny Stills, it seemed like he had a great opportunity. $49. Bad. Brian Hill. So, okay, this is an important lesson of we don't always know what these teams are going to do with their running backs. So Brian Hill is coming off a game where he has 20 carries for 61 yards and also a 10-yard touchdown catch at New Orleans. But you look at the touches, you say 21 touches. He faced the good run defense. I'll take him. And he got 15 carries the next week against the worst run defense in football, what ended up being one of the worst run defenses in football, Carolina. I don't know how bad they were at that point. And Brian Hill, he went for $66, 66 FAB dollars, and he followed that up with 15 carries for 30 yards and 1 catch for 8 yards. That is 4 PPR fantasy points. That sucks.
If I remember correctly, that was, and I'm looking, it was 1 week after Carolina got torched by Washington by both Derrius Guice and Adrian Peterson. I think they both had 100 yards rushing. And so Brian Hill was the DFS play. And I remember I did not play him a lot. I faded him, and I felt very smart about that when he didn't do very well.
It sounds like he's the number 2 now, by the way, in Atlanta.
Interesting.
Behind Gurley.
Well, you know, if there's only a week or 2 long injury, because Freeman was not supposed to miss that much time. Don't spend $66 on Brian Hill.
No, and I thought he'd be better than he was too.
Bo Scarborough was a $35 bid. He had a 14-carry, 55-yard, and a touchdown game, and then he scored 7, 8, and 7 fantasy points in basically both non-PPR and PPR the next 3 weeks. He was okay. He had 1 catch, and those were the big bids. I guess bad running backs. Or not great running backs. If you're going to bid a lot on them, it's risky.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why these guys are backup running backs on their own teams.
Right.
They're not good enough to be starters on their own teams, and overspending to get them. These guys aren't going to be like the rookie running backs. Like if Mark Ingram goes down with an injury, week 1, Mark Ingram goes down, and if Dobbins was somehow a free agent, someone would unload all of their fab to get Dobbins. So it's going to come down to a spot where the starter gets hurt and the backup is someone that's already regarded as a high upside running back. That's when you should unload the fab. You shouldn't unload for Wayne Gallman / Brian Hill / Ty Johnson or Mike Boone. That punk. I can't stand him.
And I think another point here, including Boone and Hill and Scarborough, is people love to save their fab and then they use it all late on guys like that. And I'm a fan of using it early. I think guys like Terry McLaurin being willing to be aggressive early in the season, that helps you all season. And these guys you were hoping would help you for a couple of weeks at the end, and a lot of them didn't even end up helping because you don't really know when a running back goes down late in the year or if the team's going to just mix in some young guys or what. So I don't think saving all your fab so you can blow it on a Brian Hill or Bo Scarborough. That's a big point here, I think.
I would, yeah. So if you're in a shallower league versus a deeper league and you're trying to use your fab, does that matter? Are you more aggressive in a certain type of league, Dave?
Yeah, probably.
Well, shallow or deep?
I'm probably going to be more aggressive in the deeper league than the shallow league because I know that there will be more talent that comes around in the shallow league.
Yeah, me too.
Right.
Early on, especially because in the deeper league, guys like Terry McLaurin weren't necessarily rostered in pretty much any league. Maybe they were in some deep leagues, but there's guys that are the breakouts of the year Alfred Morris or whatever. I guess he was preseason still a little, but there's these guys that come kind of out of nowhere, and that's going to be true across any league. They're not going to be rostered, but like Dave said, you're going to have other options in a shallow league, and in deep league that might be your only shot. So early on, I'm going hard at it.
You probably don't want to spend too much on quarterback streamers and tight end streamers because you're going to be doing that every week in some case. Not every week, but in a lot of weeks. If you find a quarterback that you think you're going to keep for 5 weeks, that's another thing. But, first of all, I really recommend $0 bids. I would not want to play in a league that had a $100 budget and no $0 bids, but hey, whatever.
I don't understand the $5, $8 bids. I kind of think you either are deciding that you're going to have to beat someone else's bid and you need to be aggressive. And maybe that in some cases, rare cases, that only requires 5 to 8, but you might need to be aggressive, or you go $0 and you hope no one else bids. And you're like, I could do without this guy. But don't get caught in between where you're either going to get outbid or you're going to waste some fab.
Okay. Any other tips?
Well, to that end, would it be so bad if you spent one or two just in case
No.
there's a waiver tiebreaker? Like, I'm probably guilty of that more than anything. Is there's a player that's available that I'm okay with and I wouldn't mind having, but not going to break the bank for. Don't want to spend 10% of my FAB to get him if I only think it's going to be for a couple of weeks. But I'll spend 2 or 3%.
Yeah, I think going $2 or $3
fighting chance.
Yeah, going $2 or $3 to beat the other people that are trying to get that person for 0 or 1, I think is totally fine. But like the $8 or $10 when you're probably not going to get them for 8 or 10, often doesn't play out well.
And we'll keep giving FAB advice throughout the season. We do that a ton. So when players come up off the waiver wire that are available, that's what our Tuesday shows are for, to help people set those claims and make sure they're spending their money the right way.
And if you've never played in a FAB league, it's the best. It's the most fair way to do it. It's fun. It's the best. Absolutely. And there's an option on CBS in our commissioner leagues to send the full FAB report out so you can see what others bid. So if you want someone for $30 and you want to know, well, how over aggressive was I? And you get the FAB report and the second highest bid was like 8, people can make fun of you for it or whatever. Or maybe the second highest bid was 26 and you feel really good about your bid. But that's an option for the commissioner to select. I'm sending it out this year. I think it's a really cool idea. Okay, so we're going to save the players that moved the most in your rankings since training camp opened for tomorrow. And we'll do some NFL standings predictions tomorrow and preview the Thursday night game. We're going to read your emails now, including a fantasy regulator / cops question. But first, the worst part of the show. Okay, Ben. Big announcement.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be
What an intro. What an intro.
I know.
I'm honestly very upset.
I'm glad you're sad. Yeah, this is going to be my last show, at least for now. I'm going to be leaving for the regular season. I'm going to be doing some sports betting writing and also just going to be taking some time away for a little bit. And I'll still be around on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at yardspergretch. But, yeah, I won't be a regular on the pod, after today. So, yeah, it's a bummer. I have really enjoyed this. I've really enjoyed working with you guys for the last 16 months. This is an awesome team. I was telling you guys this, and not on the air, but I've learned so much from every single person on this team. That's been such a blast for me personally. But yeah, a little bittersweet. There's sometimes it's a business type of thing, But yeah, it's
very upset about it. I've enjoyed having been on the show so much, and I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of really, really nice people. We have almost entirely really nice people on the fantasy staff since I've been at the company since 2009, and Ben fit in perfectly. He's one of the nicest people I've worked with. So that's always the first thing. I mean, that's the thing I care about the most. Do I enjoy working with the person? Yes, Ben, I enjoyed working with you so much. I learned a lot from you. Your prospect profiling is top notch. I learned a lot about college players. I'm going to, you taught me to draft Le'Veon Bell and David Johnson and Melvin Gordon in every single one of my drafts. So I'm going to do that. No, I'm not 100% in on the running back dead zone, but I'm probably about 85% in. So you've influenced me quite a bit there.
Nice.
I'm going to miss you, man. And hopefully we'll have you on from time to time.
And first of all, I did not expect to hear news like this when I woke up today, and I'm frustrated. And I echo what Adam said. I've learned a lot from you, and you were great to have around. Is there one piece of actionable advice, one thing that you want our listeners to take away with them for their drafts for the rest of their lives?
Yeah, do everything that Dave Richards says.
Thank you. Perfect. And listen. You clearly are a man of, high intelligence, and I like your advice. No, for real, is there seriously one thing?
Well, I mean, I don't know that there is. You guys know that I've always kind of been the little edges things. But yeah, I mean, structurally in drafts, don't overvalue running backs is probably my biggest thing. There's no such thing as guaranteed touches. Be open to not chasing the running back position. That's kind of my biggest mantra.
So basically the opposite of follow everything that Dave Richards says.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, literally the opposite.
All right. Like I knew all along, you're a dummy. You have no idea what you're talking about. And no, I'm just kidding. I'm teasing. All right, philosophical difference between the two of us, but still, I'm sad that you're going, and you'll be missed. And now it's time for me to let you know that I tried Seattle hot dogs again. And this time I had it with seasoned onions and hot sauce, and it was phenomenal. Made all the difference.
There you go.
Like, so good that the next time that I prepare hot dogs at home, I'm going to make them Seattle style. So here's the recipe. Grill a hot dog, toast your bun, put some cream cheese on the bun, grill some onions, put butter and salt and pepper on the onions as they're cooking. Let them get nice and tender. Put the onions on the hot dog in the bun, of course, and then put just to taste how much hot sauce you want. If you want crazy heat, go crazy. And if you want just a little, just a few drops. But I believe that it's having something hot that made the hot dog really be great.
So
Nice.
the cream cheese goes on the outside of the hot dog bun, right?
Yep.
Okay.
No.
And the hot dog is like horizontally laid like across the
Right. You chop it up into pieces and you slather each piece with cream cheese and then
Okay, that makes sense. Let's do some fantasy cops from, I don't have a name here, from a small
Percy.
town in West Kentucky. Who is it, Dave?
Percy,
Percy from?
a small town in West Kentucky.
Yeah, okay. Last night we had our live draft. Today, our commissioner put all of our players into our rosters. The last skill player he drafted was Artevis Pierce, but that player was not available to put on a roster, so he added James Robinson. About 1 o'clock, he sent us a message that the rosters were uploaded. He informed us that his last pick wasn't available, so he just added another rookie running back.
Oh, man.
6 o'clock, I got an update that James Robinson was named the starter for Jacksonville. Should the commissioner have to drop James Robinson so everyone has a chance to spend fab on him, or is it fair game?
Was it the very, very last pick of the draft?
It
doesn't even matter. There's this, to me, this is the easiest I'm going out with an easy one. There's no chance the commissioner can just add him after the fact. The player you picked at draft day was the player. Everyone else gets a chance at him. News can be updated. You could have saw more information after the draft. You had to draft on draft day James Robinson. You didn't, and you can't just add him to your roster because that spot was. I understand the commissioner's thinking. I can't get the guy that I actually drafted onto my team, but you can't just add somebody that's going to be somebody that's clearly going to get bid on.
No, I agree. I was just wondering, could it be a situation where he had the last pick anyway, and he took a player and just, sorry, wrong. Well, no, never mind. That doesn't.
No, it was Artevis Pierce who I don't know if he didn't make the Bears roster or something, but he's
right.
Not,
he got cut. Right.
He couldn't put him on his team, so he just said, "Okay, I'll take James Robinson."
But time had passed.
What do you do then? Like, who do you even put on your team if you cannot physically put Artevis Pierce on your team?
Well, why are you drafting somebody if you can't put them on your team?
No,
it's almost like
he's looking for a Bears running back with Montgomery hurt, so he didn't know that Pierce would not.
So was Pierce on his team or not?
He drafted him, and then he went to upload the rosters. They did a live draft. Then he went to upload the rosters and put all the players on.
Oh, see, that's where
he could not put Artevis Pierce on.
But that doesn't mean you get to choose James Robinson. What I would do is find somebody who certainly is just a placeholder.
Yeah. Put him back in the league. Everyone gets the bid on him. The fantasy cops say so. All right, let's do some emails. Finish the show. Fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. This is from James. Dear Blanche, Rose, Dorothy, and Ma. Schrager, you know that?
No.
Thank you for being. Excuse me, Ben Gretsch. What was that?
I was going to ask you if it's Golden Girls. I have no idea.
Golden Girls.
What's the age difference between Ben Gretsch and Ben Schrager?
I just guessed.
Sometimes I feel like it's like 2 months.
I'm 33. Schrager, how old are you?
23.
Yeah, 10
it's
years.
A decade. Yeah, I guess that would make the difference between knowing who the Golden Girls are and.
It was 12 years before I was born.
The Golden Girls, I mean, like, it's not like the Golden Girls were wildly popular when I was born. Well, maybe they were, but not when I was, like, growing up. Okay, anyway. Grade the trade. Give up Dak Prescott and Cooper Kupp. Oh, actually, he said, I was offered this trade, and in a fit of disgust, I told the man who proposed the trade to pack a bag full of sand, get into his car, and drive it straight to hell. Maybe I'm overreacting, but here's the trade. I give up Dak Prescott and Cooper Kupp. I get Matt Ryan, Deebo Samuel, and J.K. Dobbins. I have Mark Ingram.
No.
So he didn't make the trade?
Not only did he not make the trade, he
grade the trade that didn't happen.
I don't think it's that awful. I don't think it's sending him straight to hell with a bag full of sand. But I mean, that's probably not a trade I'd make.
You should have given him 6 bags of sand.
Okay, from Nick. My friend is the commission, one of my leagues. He limited in a year with potential COVID cases. Max amount of trades is 5. The rosters are already shallow. Nick just wants us to like, he just wants the vent.
He didn't ask a question?
10 ad drops all year.
Definitely do more than 10 ad drops. That's ridiculous.
Why do you have to have a limit on ad drops?
But even if you are going to limit it, I agree with you, Dave, entirely. But even if you are going to do that, even if he likes that idea, a couple of things. One, this year they've stacked the buys more in case they have to reschedule games. That means that you're going to need to be able to be flexible on bye weeks. 2, 10 is less than 1 per week, one transaction per week. I mean, like, this is crazy.
Okay, guys, rapid fire. Finish these emails from Dave. I have David Montgomery. If he doesn't play, who's my best bet in week 1? I don't know the scoring. Patterson, James Robinson, Latavius, Madison, Fournette.
I'm going Robinson. It's an upside play for me, always.
From no name here. Sorry about that. I drafted A.J. Dillon in the 14th round, PPR. Should I drop him for Josh Kelley or Darrell Williams?
Kelley for me.
Kelley for me too.
Andrew in Chicago, 12-team standard scoring league. I give up DK Metcalf, Hayden Hurst, Michael Gallup, and Marlon Mack. Metcalf, Hurst, Gallup, and Mack. I get Kelsey, Crowder, and Edmonds. Ooh, I hate this trade. I think I hate it.
I think I hate it too. I'd want to run it through the trade chart before I
love getting Kelsey, but yeah, it's a lot to give up to get Kelsey.
Yeah, Kelsey, you're getting Crowder and Edmonds, who in a standard scoring league, Crowder's not much. I don't know.
Yeah.
Metcalf, Hurst, Gallup, and Mack. Nope, don't do it.
It probably does work out in your favor on the trade chart.
Because you're getting an extra player.
Right.
Oh, no, you're not getting an extra player. Never mind. Oh, I don't know, Dave. I don't like it.
I don't really love it either.
You better have receiver depth if you're giving up both Metcalf and Gallup. But otherwise, I think, those guys for Kelsey make some sense, and Hurst for Crowder and Edmonds.
Too much. It's too much for Kelsey and Crowder.
Lot, though. Yeah.
From Dom in Prescott, Arizona, grade the trade, 10-team PPR. Give up Kyler Murray, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and James Conner. Ooh. Murray, Edwards-Helaire, and Conner. Get McCaffrey and Cam Newton.
Anything for McCaffrey. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Tough.
It's
say C-. I don't think I'd do it.
It's too much for McCaffrey.
Is anybody going to give a grade today?
In a 10-team league, I'll give it a B. I think I'm fine with it.
Okay.
It's a deep enough league you can find replacements.
Ben, you want to sign off? You want to do the outro?
No, I'm terrible
because
at that type of thing.
Yeah, so is Adam. That's why he's asking.
It's been a blast. It has been an absolute blast. Thank you guys for listening and all the feedback in the in the DMs and in the emails and stuff. I've really appreciated it.
At yards per Gretch does not rhyme with catch, and we'll leave it at that. Talk to you tomorrow, everybody. See ya.
Want more of the Fantasy Football Today podcast and nonstop year-round fantasy advice? It's simple. Hit the subscribe button and hang with us all throughout the year.